Good morning, everyone. All right, I'm going to quickly review my trades this morning. It was a pretty unfortunate morning. Now, it was still green and all that stuff, but it could have been a much, much, much better morning. Unfortunately, price action gave me some unlucky things that happened, and that really limited today's gains. Also, I did wake up late. My alarm didn't went off 4 minutes after market open for some reason. I don't know why. Um, so I showed up to the market when it looked like this. Now, keep in mind, um, I could have possibly entered SPX puts here for these pivots. And there's a lot of them. Like I can mark a lot of them out. You know, we have this one here. We have this one. This is a perfect double bottom right here. That's important. So this one's important. Um, but I only just showed up to the market here and I got a huge buying wick. So I wasn't around. So doing just basic strength and weakness analysis, looks like ES is flipping stronger. We are kind of dumping out of the gate. We do have a major pivot down here on NQ. And we did sweep sell side liquidity up here on NQ. So, anyways, I'm looking for some, one more consolidatory candle on NQ to take puts to this demand break. Or if ES invalidates a majority of this move, I'd be bullish to the pre-market high pivot on ES. And that's kind of what ended up happening. Now, this candle looked like we were going to head down, but if you look at the next candle, it did actually invalidate it. And you can see that ES actually flipped strong here. So I did end up taking SPX calls as my first trade of the day. Full size trade, nice full size trade right out of the gate. And not right out of the gate, but I took it kind of at the start of this candle. I got a bad fill though. I tried filling at 2.5. I filled at 2.6. So I filled like right here. PT was all the way up here. Now keep in mind, I'm more than able and more than willing to take profits once we invalidate most of this move. So this supply, once we hit this triple supply is when I'm going to start trimming. And it was a pretty nice trade. It went right to it. It hit roughly 40 to 50% gains. If I remember correctly. Actually, I have it right here. I can pull it up. I entered 2.6 and yeah, the contracts got to $4. So do the math on that. It's a lot. That's like what, 70% gains ish. So it was up a lot. The contracts today were moving fantastic, fantastic movement. Like just absolutely awesome. However, you'll notice that NQ barely missed this pivot here. So I'm also bearish for this pivot. But I'm already in this trade and this is my final PT. So I started taking some profits here. Around 60-ish percent gains and 70% gains. And I said, with us barely missing the pivot by one singular tick, I'm willing to add back to this trade what I trimmed if it still looks bullish and we pull back. But what happened? We got a beautiful buying wick here on ES indicating bullish consolidation. By the way, look at this beautiful like upwards trending green volume. NQ also came down and got this pivot, but I forgot. I did take this scalp right here. During this ES trade, I did enter QQQ puts briefly, just as a scalp for that pivot. Because it was obvious this was clear bearish consolidation. This was a full-size trade, tight stop loss. And I sold it on this candle. I took those calls, I took those puts from 50 cents to 60 cents for a 20% gain. Very easy trade. And then I added back to my SPX calls. Now keep in mind, I didn't bring it back to full size. I was a little bit over half size now, like maybe at 2/3, because I trimmed a little more than half. I actually trimmed a decent more than half. I want to say I trimmed close to 2/3 here. So I had 1/3 left, and I added back a third-ish on this buying wick. So this was a nice 20% scalp here. Was looking pretty good, but unfortunately, NQ started dropping. Now this candle still looked okay, but we dropped. I stopped out on this candle here of the rest of my position. I stopped out for, let me see, minus 25%. So I only averaged, unfortunately, I said it was 10, but looking at my broker, I think I averaged like maybe 15% gains on the trade. Again, It was up so much, man. It's pretty unfortunate. The contracts were moving so good too. And at this point, the QQQ puts are starting to print. But the plan of action was ES gets to my PT. Here, I sell my position. And then normal strength and normal momentum and liquidity analysis, I'd be triggered back into puts roughly here, right? And then I would take it to this perfect double bottom here that I'm bearish to. And we also have some nice pivots here as well. That was the plan. But ES missed by one singular tick and ruined the entire thing. So I got 20% gains on a full size trade on QQQ, and I averaged probably 15-ish% on this SPX trade. Again, it would have been way more, but I did take a loss on, 2/3 of the position. The only reason why it was still green is because the contracts went up like 60-70% here. So I can't get in now because I stopped out of calls on this candle. Rather than entering puts on this candle, I had to stop out of the rest of my calls on this candle. And you guys know me, I don't reverse trades. I'm not willing to chase it. That's bad psychology. The only chance I have at entering puts is if we dead cat bounce right before low of day and validate the bounce, and I can enter whatever's weaker. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And due to my rules and due to having flawless psychology, see how it's starting to maybe dead cat bounce and then boom, it just breaks. Due to having perfect psychology, following my rules, I could not be in for this drop. And it was really annoying and just super annoying that we were one tick away from greatness. Like one tick away from a 70% trade, 20% trade, which happened anyways. And this was a great sell, by the way. I mean, it got a volume spike, a buying wick against a pivot, did exactly what I needed to. But I was one tick away from, instead of just a 20% trade and small gains here, 70% here, and then 400% or 500% on the way down, because that's what they ended up doing. So lots of gains were missed out on today, but not because it was my fault. It's just because it's price action's fault. If it didn't miss by one singular tick, I would have been in there like underwear. But unfortunately, I had to sit through and watch all this break. I can't get in unless we get like very obvious bearish consolidation. And you can see how much this dropped, right? Now, we finally put in a bottoming signal. We got a huge volume spike, number one. Number two is a huge buying wick on both, which is 2. And then number 3, NQ's in demand. Pretty bullish. But I can't enter. Now, what's a great trade is calls if it comes all the way back up, because this is almost as good as a perfect double top now that I'm bullish for, right? I did send that TA alert. But now I need something good to trigger me, and I need lower lows, right? I need a falling wedge in demand. Those are the most common patterns you'll see in demand for a reversal trade. And it started happening. Obviously, I can't enter puts here because, we're in demand. We got all the bottoming signals now. I would have been able to enter puts if we bounced and put in a nice bear flag, but we didn't. NQ ended up sweeping low day here, as you can see. And I filled QQQ calls on this candle. Now, I believe that I entered before this buying wick happened, so I didn't get a very good fill. But I filled QQQ calls half size on this candle. At 70 cents, I did not get a great fill, but I did add the second half as an average up if the selling wick invalidated, which brings a hard stop loss to here. And really, here are my PTs. The first one is this one, right? You can see that's not a very good risk to award. So my main PTs are the 38.2% fib, which I will show you where that is. And then this ES pivot here. Now keep in mind ES is trying to put in a bear pennant. ES did not make lower lows, which is bearish bias. I did add my second half here, so it was technically kind of an average up. A little bit into the next candle, actually, like halfway up the next candle. So it was a bit of an average up. And yeah, my PT was pretty much 38.2% fib. That general area, I'll be trimming heavy and scaling out in this area. And ES to get to this pivot. We went up beautifully, and it's really annoying because the contracts today, man, moved so well. It's like they did the opposite of chop, right? I got in this trade at 70 cents. Within a candle and a half, it was already up over 20%. Like gorgeous, gorgeous options trading day. And that was kind of salt on the wound. Because remember, I entered these QQQ puts at 60 cents. The bottom, they were $3. They like 5x'd. And some even 6x'd. Right? So it's with how awesome options were moving today, it was definitely salt on the wound that I missed out on this huge drop. And even though I was kicking ass with my trades, my analysis was perfect, my psych was perfect, it still didn't feel good because, missed out on so much, normal human emotions. But anyways, boom, there you go. Sold most here. Mostly out of PTSD for this because we missed by one tick here on ES. And now I'm like, okay, well, I wanted ES to sweep because in a perfect world, ES would sweep, then invalidate most of the move, and then I'd enter puts. Does that look familiar? That's what I wanted to happen this morning. That was the whole plan. So now it's the exact same plan. And I got 40% gains on those QQQ calls, by the way. Like, big trade. So we got plus 15-ish% from the SPX on average. 20% quick, easy, 20% scalp on QQQ. If you held that, you made millions. And then 40% here. And now I'm looking for SPX puts, but I wanted it to break this pivot because it missed it by, one tick again. I did close my last QQQ runner on this drop. The cup and handle was possible. Wasn't really looking like it. But we did end up kind of turning to the upside, and that's where my day ended. There's not another trade for me to take right here. This cup and handle is too wonky. I don't have a good PT. The PT would be the 61.8 fib. And if I took to the 61.8 fib, it looks like we are stuck going sideways. So, yep, looks like I stopped trading at the perfect time, which brings me a mild amount of joy. But yeah, just missed opportunities. But regardless, we got 15% here, 20% scalp on QQQ, and then 40% here. Still good trading. This drop was not supposed to be missed. With the way I trade and the edge that I trade with, I am in for this drop, especially when there's pivots below and it's easy to perform liquidity analysis. I'm usually in for this drop, which, again, put me in a bad mood for this entire morning. Just unfortunate, man. ES missed this pivot by one tick. One tick was the difference between a okay green day and like the brightest green day I've had in weeks. But regardless, what can you do, right? It's all just about having perfect psychology and executing flawlessly. Sure, I could have cheated and chased puts, but that would have reinforced bad psychology, and that would have lost me far more money in the long run than I could have ever possibly made today. So, as far as the trading was concerned and the execution, it was flawless. Flawless psychology. Stuck to my rules. And forced myself to sit on my hands while I watched this absolutely just plummet this morning. But that was pretty much my day. Not really too much to talk about. Also, it's not like I want to talk about it because it's just frustrating. But also, I didn't do a lesson. I didn't do a trade review yesterday because the market only went up at market open. I took two trades for like 100% gains and something else. I don't remember. Two like really big trades, close-ish to 100% each. And so there's no point in reviewing. But today, I'm sure some of the smooth brains that are just not trying to learn how to trade but just following like sheep are wallowing in despair that I wasn't in puts. So today was a good trade review because now you know why I wasn't in puts. Not because I didn't want to be, but because I wasn't allowed to be. And that's how you're supposed to trade, right? Just because I think something's going to happen, that does not mean I'm going to get into a trade, right? Triggered in when my documented and my statistically backed edge triggers me in. And I know what triggers me in because I have a stack of pages on my desk that tell me the exact setups that I'm allowed to take. And that literally guarantees me to be profitable over the large series events. Literally guarantees it. Just like a casino is guaranteed to win over the large series of events. I am as well. And all I do is just do whatever my documentation says, and I walk away green most days. And anyways, what I was saying was, just because you think something's gonna happen does not mean you should be in a trade. Right? And for some of my trades, I don't think they're gonna play out, but I enter anyways because That's what my edge tells me to do, right? Would you have closed your positions after missing by one tick? What do you mean, Verge? The first one, the SPX calls? I mean, I trimmed before it got there. That's one important thing with just options. I always trim. If I were trading futures, I wouldn't. I would have took a loss. If I were trading futures this morning, I would have had a hard PT here, and it would have been a loss. So luckily, because I was trading options, I trim heavy before I get to PTs on purpose because options like to decay and chop right before it gets to PTs, especially when you're entering supply. Um, that saved me. But no, um, if you are trading a hard like future strategy, for example, and your PTs at new high of day, why on earth would you sell one tick before, right? You're just gonna blow up your account. Like I promised, you're just gonna blow up your account. Again, it's just don't do it. Whatever your strategy tells you do it blindly. That's all you do. Because what's gonna happen is if you sell it early and it ends up running massively, you're gonna blow your account chasing the run because you're gonna be all upset that you made the wrong decision. None of these decisions in your trading should be decisions that you make. They should be decisions to follow your edge. So it's not my. I don't choose whether to enter or not. My edge, my documentation tells me when to enter, and I just listen. And that takes all of the responsibility out of it. Right? You're not responsible for your own trades. You're just responsible for executing flawlessly and listening to your edge. That's it. Yep, that is true, David. David says, I love when I trigger myself to what I think is unlikely due to my edge and it plays out. Yep. That's why we document. That's why we backtest. And most retail traders don't do that. And most retail traders have no idea what I'm talking about right now, which is why most retail traders never even have a tiny chance of ever possibly becoming profitable. So what we're doing here is awesome work. And for those of you that are watching these lives, you guys are doing awesome work as well. You know, these lives are only a few dozen people watch each of these trade reviews. But I literally have hundreds and thousands of people that follow my trades every day and look at my channel every day. But only a few dozen actually care enough to learn how to trade, learn the reasoning behind my trades, all of those things. And for you people that are watching this, DM me on Discord. My Discord is Bryce Trades, just normal Bryce Trades. Or comment on the YouTube video and I'll reach out. If you have any questions or want to know more. Because you guys, statistically speaking, even if you're unprofitable, even if you're going through hell trading, there's no story that I haven't heard. If you're attending these trade reviews, you are in the small minority, which greatly increases your probability of achieving success in regards to all the goals you set. So, how did you reflect your backtesting edge for your forward testing? I mean, psychologically. What do you mean, Zen? Because you backtest your edge, you have your result. Say it comes with 75% win rate. All right, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna expect 10% less than that in live because live is never as good as backtesting, right? That's why if you can barely even get 50% backtested, it's not gonna be good in live, right? But if you get 65 to 75% of an edge, even 62%, that's gonna be profitable in live testing. So I executed in live expecting a difference, like it to be a little bit worse, but still profitable. And then I compare the results. Go back and paper trade the days that I live traded, figure out did I follow the edge perfectly? If not, what can I fix? So on and so forth. And keep doing that. You compare your live to your back testing to bridge that gap between the results. And as long as you execute flawlessly, you're going to be able to bridge that gap, and you're going to be able to achieve the results that you've speculated from your scalability analysis that you should do. Hopefully that kind of answers it, and that's kind of a hard question for me to understand. Any other questions though before I hop out? No? All right, well, like I said, I'm not going to be super active because we have a double lesson today. We have a psych lesson and a TA lesson. So I will be preparing for that. But all right, well, if you guys are continuing to trade, good luck. Looks like the market went to crap, but we are compressing right now, so I'd expect a breakout by the time this compression is done. As you can see here on ES, lots of compression. So we will see which way that breaks. NQ, it's actually interesting. NQ's doing the opposite of compressing. You guys seeing this? Look how interesting that is. I don't know if I've like seen that anytime recent. Look at that. Oh my gosh, the trend lines are perfect on NQ. Look at this. Or they're close to perfect. No, they're not. I kind of bent them a little bit. Anyways, just all the trend lines. That is very interesting. Very interesting. That's technically a broadening top, which is a bearish pattern. So I think ES is a little bit more likely to break to the downside. And it looks like the bottom trend line has had more tests. But now NQ stronger. So yeah, this is very interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what happens. But all right, and all you guys that won the giveaways, I will pay you guys today. But I will see you guys later. I'll let you guys know when this recording is posted.